So what I am trying to tell you is, in today's class we are going to talk about define activities and sequence activities. So these two are very important process in project planning, and if you want to define activities and sequence activities, you must and should have created WBS. To create WBS, you must and should have defined the scope. To define the scope, you should have collected the requirements. To have collected the requirements, you have identified the stakeholders like this. So it is all correlated to each other. So today we shall see what is define activities and what is sequencing activities, and how to refine whatever work breakdown structure you have done in the previous class. We shall see how to refine it further. Okay, so that will be the agenda of today's session. Define activities, very important. So what is this define activities? First of all, know in which knowledge area it comes. It comes in your project time management knowledge area. Now this is the work breakdown structure we saw in the last class. So you had a project called filling a vacant post. This project had got 3 sub projects. One is the job, second one is the candidate, and the third one is the selection. Now this job had got 2 phases, the need and the job specification. Now this need phase had got 3 work packages. One is the budget, second one is the options, and third one is the approval. This is the work which is supposed to be done for the need. But again, within this budget, we have not defined the activities. See, when I say budget, it is only the work, that's all. But what inside that work, we don't know. So what we have to do now is, we have to take this work package called budget, and we have to decompose it still further and identify the activities to be done to accomplish that particular work package called the budget. Okay. Similarly, we also have the work package called the job, work package called the timing, work package called the person. So for all these work packages, we have to identify the activities. So identification of the activities of a particular work package is called as define activities. That is why I told you, in order to define the activities, you must and should have a work breakdown structure ready with you. So that is the starting point. Now remember, this define activities itself is a process. So we know that every process will have an input, it will have a tool and technique, and it will have an output. Okay. So first of all, let us identify what is the meaning of an activity. Identifying and defining all activities needed to produce project deliverable. Work package elements of the WBS gets divided further to project activities level, very important. So this is my work package. Approval is a work package, means I know that I have to do a work called approval, but what does that actually mean? What are the activities involved in the approval process? That I have to define it now. That is called as define activities. Okay. Now in order to understand this very clearly, I will introduce you to 2 words. The first one is, what do you mean by activity? We know that activities are nothing but the actions needed to create a work package. You have a work package. In order to work on that particular work package, you need certain actions. So all these actions are called as verbs, because we know what is the meaning of a verb in English. Verb is nothing but an action. And your WBS should be noun centric, but your activity list should be verb centric. Now what is the meaning of this? See here, let us take this work package called budget. When you look at this work package called budget, it looks like a noun. The job, it looks like a noun. What is a noun? Noun is a name of a person, place, or a thing. It doesn't give you much indication of what that job is all about, what you are supposed to do. It doesn't give much indication. It only says that there is a package, work package called the job, that's all. But what is the action involved inside that? Action involved means verb. So when you are talking about define activities, you have to mention the activities involved in that particular work package called the job. So when you are doing a WBS, ensure that all the work packages will have nouns as the names and the activities will have the verbs. So I will take one example, you will understand this better. See, there is a WBS deliverable called playground equipment. So let's say that somebody is actually constructing an stadium. The project is building up a stadium or a playground. Now when you want to build a stadium or a playground, there are so many sub projects in it. One of the work package in that entire project is playground equipment. So what do you mean by playground equipment? It doesn't make much sense. It simply says that you have to perform a work package called playground equipment. But what does that mean? It means these many activities: determine equipment needs, conduct market research, order equipment, equipment delivered, install equipment. So this WBS deliverable playground equipment was actually a noun. So this WBS deliverable is also called as a package. Now what I am trying to do, I am breaking down this package into meaningful chunks of activity. So what is that meaningful chunks of activity? It could be determine the equipment needs. First there is an activity called what and all equipment I need for my playground. You make a list. Second is I want to conduct a market research. That activity involves where and all these equipments are available in the market. What is their price? Who is the vendor? Price comparison. That is one more activity. Then you will shortlist few equipments. Then you will order for that equipment. Then the equipment will be delivered to you. After the equipment will be delivered to you, then you are going to install the equipment. So there are 5 activities involved under the package playground equipment. This concept of breaking down the work package into number of small activity is called as define activity process. Now, what you have to understand here is the package will always be a noun, but the activities will always be verbs. So whenever you think of a work, always think of certain actions involved. Okay, so that is why we call it as a verb, but the WBS deliverable name will always be in the form of a noun. So now what are the inputs for define activities? So first of all, you should have a scope baseline. We know what is a scope baseline. We saw in the last class. Scope baseline is nothing but work breakdown structure plus project scope statement plus work breakdown structure dictionary. All the 3 things together put together becomes a scope baseline. Because if I have to define the activities, I must and should have a WBS dictionary, I must and should have WBS, I must and should have a project scope statement. All the 3 things are needed as an input. I need to have OPA. OPA is nothing but organizational process assets, and I also need to have enterprise environmental factors or company policies, resource policies, political influence, and so on. So these are all inputs. Now what are the tools and techniques? One is called decomposition, very important. What is decomposition? You are doing decomposition only here. You are taking this particular work package called budget and you are decomposing into further smaller chunks into activities. So that is called as decomposition. And the second thing is, when you are decomposing, you are taking expert judgment into picture. See, I told you that if you want to do a work package called legal advisory, now what will you do basically? You have to define the activities for taking the legal advice. So there you have to take expert judgment. Probably you have to talk to one more person who has already purchased the house before. You will ask him, tell me how will I take the legal advice for verifying this paper. So he will give you some expert judgment and say this is how you need to go. So the same activities even you will follow. That is why it is called as an expert judgment. So you know what is decomposition. Decomposition basically means taking the work package and dividing into smaller activities. And the second one is the expert judgment. Expert judgment means contacting the subject matter expert in order to identify what are the sequence of activities you need to have. Then you have templates. Templates, I need to have some kind of an Excel sheet, or I need to have a Word document where we'll define all the activities, and I'll have to do a rolling wave planning. Planning has to be done, like what activities which activity I'm going to plan first, which activity I'm going to plan next, which activity I'm going to plan after that. So that is called as a rolling wave planning. So all these are becoming the tools and techniques for define activities. Now I have mentioned this. What is an expert judgment? Experienced team members can assist in the activity definition. So you are defining the activity. So probably your experienced team member may come and say that no, you are defining activity 1 as first priority and activity 2 as second priority. Since I have already done this project before, you put activity 2 as the first priority and activity 1 as the second priority. So this is called as an expert judgment. Decomposition, breaking up of the work packages into detailed activities. So that is nothing but divide and conquer. We have seen this. And templates, one of the OPAs which helps in defining the activities. So which is the template we are using? This is the template we are using. So we saw this template, very similar kind of template in WBS dictionary also. See, here I am taking every activity. For example, so you have a ID here, project title is there. See, what is the name of the project title now? You take this one only. The name of the project title is filling a vacant post. This is the project title. So under this project title, you have the need as one of the work package. Under that work package need, you have a phase called as a work package. You have the phase called as the need. Under that phase called the need, you have budget, options and approval as work packages. So what you are supposed to do here, now you will go to this activity attributes, you will put the ID, you will put the activity. So you are going to put the activity here. For example, here in this case, what is the activity here? You will take this one only, advertise and content. Advertising the content is the activity. So what I am going to do here, I am going to write the activity as advertising the content. Then I am going to write the description of the work. Now forget about what are these predecessors, relationship, lead and lag, all those things I will tell you after few minutes. But you are going to write down the activity and you are going to write down the description of the work. How many number and type of resources are needed? Advertising content. For example, you have an activity called, making the DTP for that particular advertisement. How many resources are needed? Say 1 resource is needed. What is the skill requirement for that resource? He need to have Photoshop. He need to know Photoshop. What are other required resources? Probably you need to have a content writer, because you may have to write the content for that particular advertisement. What is the type of effort? The type of effort is manual, because manually you are writing the content. Location of performance. Where is this where that particular work is going to be done? All those things you are going to actually write down in this activity attribute. So this activity attribute is nothing but a template. This template is available where? This template is available as a part of your organizational process asset. So your company will tell you which template to use for defining all these activities. So like this, if there are say 10 work packages in your work breakdown structure, and each of the work package will have 10 activities. For every activity you have to fill this. So that means you have to fill 100 such forums. That is what I am trying to tell here, so that you are very beautifully detailing everything, every minor aspect you are detailing in terms of work packages and in terms of decomposing it into activities. So once you do this, what and all output you are going to get? The first output you are going to get is the activity attributes. What is activity attributes? This one only. So if there are 100 activities, all the 100 activities forum will be there. That is one output. Then you will get activity list. Activity list means nothing but the list of activities you are supposed to do for every work package. Then you may also have a milestone list, significant milestones. For example, after 5 activities you have reached one milestone. So that milestone list also will be generated. So these are the outputs of your process, which is called as define activities. Okay. So define activities basically will have three inputs. One is the scope baseline, organizational process assets, and the enterprise environmental factors, and it will have tools and technique like decomposition, expert judgment, rolling wave planning and template, and finally it will have outputs as activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list. Once you have defined the activities, the next process is called sequencing the activities. This is also very important. See, actually both of them, defining the activity and sequencing the activity, go hand in hand, parallelly it will go on. So what I am trying to tell you is sequencing the activities and defining the activities, both go parallelly. So let us see what we do in sequencing the activities. This also comes in a knowledge area called project time management. Okay, now look at this particular picture here. Now you have define activities and you have sequence activities. Now both of these are taken as an input for developing the schedule. We will see how is that relevant. So define activities you already know. Define activities means you have taken the work package and you have actually defined and decomposed that work package into number of activities. Then you are going to sequence them. Now once we sequence them, we can develop the schedule. Okay, that we shall see later, how to develop the schedule. But what you have to understand here is, you have to identify dependencies between the project activities. Why am I doing this process called sequence activities? Because if your work package has got 6 activities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3 till activity 6. I want to find out, is there any dependencies between the activities? So you will understand what is the meaning of a dependency now. That means there could be a situation where activity 2 is totally depending upon activity 1. For example, in that advertising content only, let us say, first you have to create the content. After creating the content only, then you have to actually put the content onto the public. So now there are 2 activities. One is creating the content, that is the activity number 1. Second activity is, after creating the content, you have to put the content onto the public space. It could be on a social media. That means you have to create the content first, then only you can actually put it onto the public space. So there is a relationship between these 2 activities. So you cannot directly put the content onto the public space even before creating it. So that means if you think that creating the content as activity 1, putting the content onto the public space as activity 2, we can say that only after the completion of activity 1, then you can go to activity 2. So these dependencies are there, no, within these activities. So those dependencies I can actually identify in this process called sequence activities. So sequence activities is identifying how the activities are arranged in a sequence. So for that you have so many inputs. Okay, now whatever we got in the define activities output, that is taken as an input. You have activity list, activity attributes, milestone, project scope statement, and the OPA. OPA stands for organizational process assets. Now what are the tools and techniques? There are some 4 tools and techniques. I will tell you one by one. Very slowly you understand this, very important. One is called PDM. The second one is called dependency determination. The third one is called applying leads and lags. And fourth one is called schedule network templates. Probably we may not touch that schedule network templates now, but we'll try and touch all these other tools and techniques. Okay, we'll see one by one. What is the meaning of dependency determination? Very important. See, now there are 3 types of dependencies in your activities. Whichever project you take, there are 3 types of dependencies. What are those? The first one is called a mandatory dependency. It is also called hard logic. It is also called hard dependency. I will give you an example and explain this. Then there is a second type of dependency called discretionary dependency. It is called the preferred logic or the soft logic or the preferential logic. Same name, that's all. And the third one is called external dependency. Now you have to identify this. First we shall see what is a mandatory dependency. Mandatory dependency means it is the dependency which the organization is following. For example, in your company they are following one process called Six Sigma process. What does the Six Sigma say? The Six Sigma says that prototype needs to be built before testing. This is the process of the Six Sigma. So what does that actually mean? See, now you have a process called A. Okay, then you have a process called B, or you can call that there is an activity called A, then there is an activity called B. Now there is a dependency between these two activities. What is this activity A? Activity A is nothing but development of prototype. What is activity B? Activity B is nothing but testing. So the Six Sigma says that if there is a work package which includes prototype as one activity and testing as one activity, you should always ensure that you put the prototype on the top and you put testing below it. This is called as mandatory dependency because it is mandated by the organization. You cannot change this. So you must and should follow that. So first you have to do prototype, then only you have to go and do the testing. This is called as mandatory dependency. Okay. So next one is called discretionary dependency. Discretionary dependency means preferred logic. That means you have the option to change. So let's say that in your organization, we'll take the same example. You are doing prototyping first and you are doing testing. This is a mandatory dependency, but later on after executing few projects, you found out that this may not be correct all the time. Okay, you will find out that it is even good if you do a part of testing and then you can always go to prototyping also. Because after completing 5-6 projects, you will understand that this mandatory requirement is not good all the time. So you will ask the management to relax it a bit. You will say that no, always don't say that prototyping has to be done before testing. We have successfully executed projects where we have also done testing before and then revisited prototyping also. So then management will say that okay, go on a discretionary dependency. That means you have the option to change it. Okay, you can think of a situation, a particular situation. In that situation, if you think that testing can be taken first and then prototyping, you have the options to change. That is why it is called as a soft logic. It is not hard logic. Hard logic means it has to be followed in a certain way. Soft logic means the process is there, which says that prototype has to be done before and testing has to be done next. But if your project demands that testing can be taken first, you can still violate the rule. You can go back and put testing first and you can put prototyping next. This is called as a discretionary dependency. The third one is called external dependency, something which is not beyond your control. For example, FDA approval. You are building one a payment gateway. If you want to build a payment gateway, everything is ready for you. Project plan is ready, design is ready, but RBI, Reserve Bank of India, has still not given you the clearance. So Reserve Bank of India is an external entity. So Reserve Bank of India, unless and until Reserve Bank of India gives you a clearance, you cannot proceed further. So RBI becomes an external entity and the dependency of clearance from RBI becomes an external dependency. So dependencies can either be mandatory, which could be a hard logic, it could be discretionary, where you can have the option to change it if necessary, or it could be also an external dependency, where unless and until you get the approval, you cannot proceed further. So these are the three different types of dependencies in your activities. Now what we do is, all these activities we are identifying, we take them as small rectangular boxes and we put it in a form of a model that is called as precedence diagramming method, which is called as a PDM. Okay, I'll show you an example of a PDM, then you will understand. where every activity is represented in the form of boxes or rectangles, and each activity you are going to connect them with a arrow, something like this. See, for example, I'll just show you one simple example. Now this is my activity. Okay, let me take one simple activity. This is one activity. This is one activity. I put it as a box. I take one more activity. This is a box. I connect these two activities together. I'll call this as A, activity A, and I'll call this as activity B. So this type of diagrammatic representation of activities is called as precedence diagramming method. What exactly is A, B? I am just giving you some vague names. This could be a activity itself and B could be a activity itself. I am just giving you as A and B. Okay. So we will draw these precedence diagramming method diagrams also, but at this point of time understand what is the meaning of precedence diagramming method. Okay, now this precedence diagramming method has got 4 dependencies. Okay, one is called finish to start, finish to finish, start to start, and start to finish. We call it as FS, FF, SS, and SF. I'll explain you in a very simple way how to understand this finish to start, finish to finish, start to start, and start to finish by taking some examples. Okay. So let us consider these 2 activities only. I have activity A and activity B, and how do we make ensure that these things are understood. Okay, the first one we shall see what is finish to start. Now here I am taken 2 activities, one is called P and one is called S. So we call this P as predecessor and S is called as a successor, very important. Successor means what? It comes after your predecessor. So first you have to perform this activity, after that you have to perform this activity. So for S, P is the predecessor, and for P, S is the successor. That is how you have to understand. Now predecessor activity should finish for the successor activity to start. This is what you mean by finish to start. First you have to finish off this activity P before you actually start with activity S. So for example, I told you in the last class, you have 2 activities. One as leveling the ground. Leveling the ground is one activity, and marking the foundation is another activity. So I'll call leveling the ground as one activity, and marking or making the layout of the house is another activity. Now can I do the marking before leveling the ground? It is not possible. So first I have to level the ground. After I have leveled the ground completely, after this activity is completely finished, then only I can start with marking. After the marking is completely finished, then only I can start digging. After digging is completely finished, then only I have to go for putting the iron. After that putting the iron is completely finished, then only I can put the stones. So that means all these activities will have finished to start. That means the predecessor activity should be completed before starting the successor activity. This is what is the meaning of finish to start relationship. So you can identify such relationships in your project. See, for example, let's say that you have a design of a project, then you have a coding of a project. I am just giving an example. After designing is completed, only then you can start coding. When you have started designing, can you start coding? No, you cannot start, because your design itself is not complete. How can you start coding? So once the design is completely completed and people have approved the design, then you can happily start the coding work. Your design is not at all completed, only 10% of design is completed. Can you start coding? It cannot happen, because then the coding may go wrong. So what is the meaning of finish to start relationship means? If there are multiple activities, after completing one activity, then only you can start the another activity. So this is called as predecessor and successor activity. So this is a simple example of your mandatory dependency. Mandatory dependency means I'll say that after activity P, I have to start activity S. That means after finishing P, then I have to start S. So it is an example of a mandatory dependency. The next one is called finish to finish. We call it as FF. Now what is this finish to finish? Predecessor activity should finish for the successor activity to finish. This also means that sometimes both activities may finish together. So see, in case of the earlier example, you actually started S after completing P. Now you take this example. I have one activity called P and I have got one activity called S. Now both can start parallelly. Both can start parallelly. You need not wait for the S to start after the completion of P. You can start P and S parallelly. Or after say 25% completion of P, you can start with S. But what is the meaning of finish to finish? You should ensure that this P activity should be completed if this S activity has to be completed. That means before S activity completes, P should have been completed. That is called as finish to finish. That means before S activity completes, P should have been completed. See, let's take an example of painting the interior of a house and setting up the furniture. Okay, very good example this is. See, activity 1 is painting the interior of a house. See, let us say that you are having a project where in your house there are 4 living rooms, 4 bedrooms. Now what you want to do? You want to actually paint the house. After painting the house, you want to bring in the furniture into your living area. So there are 2 activities are there. Now there are 2 ways of looking at it. First you paint the house completely, wait everything and then bring the furniture. You can go on this relationship, finish to start. That means let the painting of the house get finished. After that you bring in the furniture. But you have other option also. First, I told you there are 4 rooms. First, when you are painting when the painting of the first room is over, when the second room painting is going to start, you can bring the furniture for the first room. So that means bringing the furniture and painting is happening parallelly, but before you get the last room's furniture, the painting should have been completed in the last room. That is called as finish to finish relationship. The third one is called finish to finish. This one, okay, so second one is called finish to finish. Okay, we have already done this. Then the next one is called SS. Task B can only begin once task A has started. Okay, now you be very clear here. See, there are 2 tasks. Okay, now I have got 2 tasks here. This is little confusing. Okay, I have 2 tasks. One is A and one is B. Now this B can only begin once this has started. After it starts, you can begin with B. We will take one example. See, let's say that I have taken IT example only. I have taken 2 tasks. One is enable system monitoring and the second one is begin load testing. Okay, see, you have built one e-commerce portal. Now what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to perform a load test on that. What is the meaning of load test? How many users can concurrently log in to my e-commerce portal at the same time? So load test means you have to ensure that those many virtual users, for example, let us say that your customer will say, I want my e-commerce portal to support 1000 user logins at the same time. So if you are doing load testing, you have to virtually create 1000 users using some testing tool. But once you are testing that, doing the load testing, something should be running at the background, basically to see whether your e-commerce portal is actually supporting that or not. That is done by system monitoring. So that means a system monitoring tool should be enabled first, that is task A. After the system monitoring tool is enabled, then you perform the load test. So which means task B can only begin once task A has started. So that means what? First enabling system monitoring tool should start. Once it is started, then only you can begin with load testing. So this is called as start to start. SS means what? Starting of B depends upon starting of A. If A has not started, B cannot start. If A has not started, B cannot start. So this is actually called as SS, start to start kind of relationship. Then you have last one, which is called as start to finish. What is the start to finish? We can only finish task A once work on task B has started. There's a lot of difference here. We can finish task A once work on task B has started. Okay, I'll explain this to you. See, migrating to a new IT system. Okay, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? See, now your customer had a problem in the current system. So he was following the old system, some automation system he was using. So he had a problem in that current system. You redesigned that entire system. So what did you do? So you had a old system. This was my old system. From the old system, you are going to a new system. Okay. Now you have to implement this new system. If you want to implement this new system, you have to cut off this old system. After cutting the old system, then you have to implement the new system. Now how do you cut it? We can do it using an SF methodology. What is that SF? First shut down old system, get new system up and running. So what does it mean? Imagine you helping your client move from his current system to a new system. Get new system up and running is the second task, but for that you have to shut down the old system. So what does it mean? We can only finish task A. What is task A? You have to shut down the old system completely. After shutting down the old system, then task B has started, which means the new system is coming into picture, stage by stage. So this is called as start to finish. The second task will start after the first task is finished. Now you have a simple PDM model. So this is an example of a PDM model. You have a project start, scrape, prime, clean equipment, finish, prime, paint, finish. So now you can see there's a slight deviation here. After putting the primer, you have one more activity called clean equipment and finish, or you can directly after putting the primer, you can go for paint and you can finish. Now here after putting the primer, whether to go for a clean equipment and finish or whether to go for a paint and finish, this sequence of activities can be decided by the expert judgment. So experts will tell you after priming it is good if you clean the equipment and finish. Some people say no, don't have to worry. In our earlier projects we have seen that this cleaning equipment doesn't make much difference. So after priming you can directly go for painting and finish. So like this, that is why I told you the expert judgments are important when you are actually defining the activity sequence. That is why one of the tools and techniques was your expert judgment. Now what is important is a last thing in today's class is applying leads and lags. So first we'll understand what is the meaning of a lead and a lag. A lead allows an acceleration of the successor activity and a lag directs a delay in the successor activity. Okay, now you see here you have task A and task B. Okay, now let us say that I told you that if there is a mandatory logic. What is that mandatory logic? I told you that task B will begin after the completion of task A. But sometimes I told you because of previous projects you have experienced that after 90% of completion of task A you can still begin with task B. You don't have to wait till 100% completion of task A. So that means you can put this task B just nearing task A. Now this is the lead time, this is your time. So generally this diagram should be like this, okay, after this it should be like this, but now what you are doing, you are putting this within this. So this much time gap is there, no, this much time gap is the time you are saving for task B, because you are starting task B after 85-90% of completion of task A. So we'll take one simple example. See, in marriage you have a photo shoot. So generally what is the concept? The photographer will come after taking 100 photo shoots. You will take that all the photos back and you will start editing. So editing is task B, taking of photos is task A. So now generally we'll think that editing will start only after the photo shoot is complete. But if you have to save time, after taking 80 photos, editing can start parallelly for those 80 photos, and remaining 20 photos can be taken. That means what, editing is now starting even before the photo shoot is getting completed. So this is called as a lead. So what is the advantage of having a lead? You are basically accelerating the task, you are accelerating the successor activity. That means your successor activity has to start after the completion of photo shoot. Since you are having a very strict timeline, you cannot wait till task A to complete. So you can just push that successor activity inside task A activity only, and you can make them, both of them, run parallelly. This is called as a lead phenomena in scheduling. What is a lag phenomena? Just opposite. So after finishing task A, you will give some buffer time, say 1 day or 2 day or 3 day, and then start task B. Sorry, there I have not mentioned it as task B, it is showing as task A only. See, for example, simple example is your foundation. After putting the foundation, you have a lag time of say 21 days for it to cure before you start erecting the walls. After putting the walls, before going for the roof, and after putting the roof, you have to wait for another 15-20 days before you actually construct the parapet wall. So this is called as a lag time. So the lag time is that time which you are going to wait between a predecessor and a successor activity, and a lead time is the time you are going to shrink from the successor within the scope of the predecessor timeline. So this is called as applying leads and lags in schedule activities. Now once you do that, you will get something called as an schedule network. So we will talk about that schedule network later. So what is the output of the sequence activities? So you will get network diagram. I just showed you an example of a network diagram, and you will have some document updates like activity list, activity attributes, risk register, new things is coming here. We will talk about this when we are actually working on risk management. So all these documents will be updated. Okay. So this is how we do this two important process which is called as define activities and sequence activities.